One skill that is very, very important in any time of crisis or craziness is knowing how to use what you have to cook something delicious. So this week, let me just be honest, we were not the best with our money, and now we're stuck eating what we have at home. So I'm going to show you a recipe that I'm making with just the foods that we have here. Are you ready? Let's see how it goes. In my freezer, I had a container of sausage that was mostly cooked. I'm warming it up and finished cooking it. I found 2 containers of chicken broth. And so I'm going to thaw the chicken broth, finish cooking the sausage. The sausage, I'm not actually using all of this in the soup I'm making. I'm just going to use part of it. So, because that would be a lot of sausage in this little soup. But I don't have the greatest confidence in this ability, so I'm going to take half of the sausage and use it for something else, just in case this is a fail. Now I found some purslane in my garden, so we're going to chop that up as fine as we can and add it. My husband and we don't love purslane so far, but the recipe we did like it in was actually a soup. And I noticed that it is mucilaginous, which means it helps to thicken your soups. So we're gonna chop that up and add it in. There we go. We'll drain the sausage and add it in as well. We'll chop up a green onion from the garden. I had some red pepper in the fridge. Let's add that in. I chopped those up as fine as I can. Adding more green onion just because. Now we're adding in the cooked and drained sausage. We're adding some garlic powder. Normally I'd add fresh garlic, but we're out. So this is what we have so far. But what inspired this soup was actually the zuppa toscana from Olive Garden. I was thinking about it because I had sausage and I have kale in the garden. And I was like, well, I can't really make that because my husband has to do keto. But what if I made a kind of keto version? So we're going to get some cream cheese and some heavy cream and add them in place of the potatoes that go into the zuppa toscana. Adding in about 2 ounces of cream cheese and some whipping heavy cream. And I feel like there's one more ingredient we're missing. Now we're going to toss in part of a can of dried tomatoes. But first I should probably drain some of the juice to use in a different recipe. So I added about half of the can. The rest is saved over here for another recipe that I'm making in case this is a fail. I know I will eat this, but my husband's a little more selective. So we're going to take a whisk and we're going to mix this. We're just going to keep heating it and whisking until the cream cheese is melted into the rest. And while it's heating, I'm going to cut these tomatoes up for the other recipe. So the cream cheese is melted in, and now we're going to taste and see how it is. So now I know a little bit more about how it tastes so far, and I can make a plan for what I need to do differently. So I'm going to add some chicken bouillon just because it's a little watery. I'm going to add some more cream cheese to help it thicken up a little. And it's time to bring out the spices. So tip number 1 that I have is to do what I did today. Don't wait until you are totally desperate to try this skill. You always want to start learning it when you have a backup plan. Right now, I'm also cooking another dish using the other half of the sausage and some hamburger that I had in the freezer as well. So, also, make sure that you start learning your spices. Try them in different things. When I was starting to learn to cook, I would take a chicken breast or something and I would just add a spice to it and see what happened. And then eventually I started mixing them. Don't wait until you're desperate to start that though. Start that now while you can. So I added in another 2 ounces of cream cheese, and I added in about a teaspoon of chicken bouillon. So we'll let that cook for a minute, stir the second dish I'm making, and I'll be back. Now, the next tip that I'll tell you about soups is when you are looking to try a spice, grab your spoon, get a little on your spoon, add the spice, just a little bit, to your spoon full of broth and see how it tastes. So yesterday, my friend Garden Warrior Q was using this Cajun seasoning in a recipe. And I thought, wow, that sounds amazing. So we're adding some in. Now it's really hot, so if you don't like hot, this may not be the seasoning for you. But we're gonna see how it goes. Let that cook a little longer, letting the hamburger and things kind of simmer down. We don't want it too hot because they said something. I saw something once that said that tomatoes lose some of their flavor if you keep them going too hot for too long. Well, I've waited for the cream cheese to finish melting in, and it's still a little thin. So time for our secret weapon, cheese. So I just added in 2 handfuls of cheddar cheese. We're gonna whisk until that's all melted in together, and our soup will be done, and it's going to be amazing. So our soup is done and cooling down a little to eat. I ended up adding some turmeric, a bunch of cumin, an itty bitty bit of cardamom, some salt and pepper to the hamburger and sausage mix. Cooked it a while, and now it is ready to serve too. And here we go. It's going to be delicious. So after trying the soup, my husband said it's good. Weird, but good. And I definitely agree. If I had it to do again, I would definitely add a little more sausage. I would chop the tomatoes up a little better. And I would probably cook it a little longer just to let it thicken a bit more. But overall, it was good stuff. So it sounded weird in theory, which is why I didn't tell you what I was making until I was done. But never be afraid to try some experiments. Get to know the foods you're cooking, see how they combine, get to know your spices, so that if you are ever in a crisis where you don't have a lot of food, you're better able to mix and match your foods to make something delicious, or at least edible. Do you have a recipe that you learned to make in a time like this? Let me know in the comments, or make your own video and post the link here. See you next time.